Welcome to Module 4. Today, I want us to look at two really powerful questions. Why is it important to guide teachers, administrators, and our stakeholders through the process of identification and analysis of root causes for data outcomes? And how can the process be put into place or improved on? So, two really important questions as we dive into looking at data for this module. So, just for a moment, let's jump out of a plane. So, your parachute packer has been to school and they have taken a test on packing parachutes. And here are their test scores. We have student A in the black line. We have student B on the blue line. And we have student C on the dark blue line, which is this here, this line right here that I'm pointing my cursor to. Then this purple line is the competency or mastery level for parachute packing. So based on that graph, who would you want packing your parachute? So remember, the parachutes were packed after the course was over. And you can make your own decision. So who do you want to pack your parachute? Well, I think it's obvious if we look at the graph as it is intended, because student C started out really way below the mastery line. But where did student C end up? After a little plateau, then they actually exceeded the expectation. Excuse me. So if I had to choose which one, I would take student C. You know, student A started out strong, but they plummeted. And student B, they are not consistent at all. So you have to look very carefully at the end. It's not so much where you start, but it's where you end up. So where and with who will analysis occur? And what are your expected outcomes after the analysis is done? So right now, I want you to think back to some things that we have already talked about in these videos that we've been doing together. And that's the cycle process, how data should be a reflection of what your purpose is. So in other words, what is my purpose? What am I assessing? Will the assessment really tell me what I need to know? Is it a screener? Is it diagnostic? Is it for progress monitoring? Exactly what is the expectation? So thinking about our workplace, we have to stop and wonder what exactly is on our platter. We have a lot of non-negotiables that are held up in our school and our workplace. What do you have to do? What do you get to do? And what could you do? So I'm going to add another layer to that. What does data allow you to do? Because a lot of times data kind of pushes us into what we have to do, and it takes away from what we might get to do. And then we leave out that element of what could we do if we just knew. So looking at that a little more closely, it's a powerful practice for leaders to set directions, to develop their people, to redesign the organization as it becomes necessary to manage the instruction program at all levels. And when I say manage here, I don't mean micromanage, because you have to know that the fish rots from the head down. It is, how do you support? It's that management and support of instructional programs in the building or the system. So why is leadership powerful? Leadership effect on student learning occurs largely because leadership strengthens professional community, teachers' engagement in professional community, in turn, fosters the use of professional practices that are associated with student achievement. And this comes from the Leadership and Learning Center. I think you may have already seen this before, but it seems like a good place to go ahead and put this back in, this note here, because how you treat people on your team, if you're a classroom teacher, if you're a teacher leader, if you're wanting to become a school administrator, how you treat people in the realm of what you do really can affect student achievement. So in Module 3, I had a video posted up from David Rock. For him, he was talking about his SCARF model and what that meant. I didn't want to go over these things before I was hoping you had an opportunity to look at that video, because I think it makes more sense if you have a little background knowledge before we move into it. But this is a self-portrait, and this is something you can do with teachers or teams of teachers or faculties. So your head, you would just write out to the side, when do you feel like your knowledge is valued? For your eyes, what do you hope people see when they first meet you? For your mouth, what words make you feel appreciated? For your hands, what work are you doing when you are your best self? Your heart, what are you passionate about? Your stomach, what kinds of interactions make your stomach hurt? Your left foot, what steps are you taking that make you feel discouraged? Right foot, what steps are you taking that make you feel empowered? So it's a really good self-reflection when you talk about how people view things and their perspective in light of David Rock's SCARF model. So just to recap, the SCARF model, which was developed by David Rock in 2008, is a summary of important discoveries from neuroscience about the way people interact socially. And after all, how we operate within our school and use data and build school improvement plans, it is an action, a social action. The model is built on 3 central ideas. 1, the brain treats many social threats and rewards with the same intensity as physical threats and rewards. Why is that important here? If my neighbor is a level 5 teacher and she's always getting accolades, and I'm a level 3 teacher and I just can't seem to get it there, then how is my feelings toward my teammate, how does that affect me physically and actually how I interact socially with her and maybe my boss? You have to be aware of those types of things. Number 2, the capacity to make decisions, solve problems, and collaborate with others is generally reduced by a threat response and increased under a reward response. So what that is saying to us, as we make decisions and solve problems and collaborate with each other, we have to be aware that how we make people feel, it's the right foot. How do I empower people? That is what's going to make a difference as you work to solve problems and find those learner-centered problems and the POPs. How can we make a difference? And then number 3, the threat response is more intense and more common and often needs to be carefully minimized in social interactions. So we know all this, and we want to avoid getting people that, heightened threat response when things are happening at school, at work, at home. I will give you a personal example today. My director sent an email that the principals reported to her that they didn't know anything about the case assessment window, and it snuck up on them, and just several things like that they said, and I felt threatened. My anxiety was heightened, and I'm the type of person that kind of thing hurts my feelings because I always want to do everything correctly. But I think I would have handled it differently if I had not felt threatened socially. So, and that's just a human side of what we do. And how we interact with each other is so important in moving schools. So the point here is absolutely that how you treat each other and how you work together will make all the difference in the world in how you move your school or your district or the students in your classroom. So just to drill down a little bit more, understanding the SCARF model. Again, it's a neuroscience model about the way people interact socially. The S is about status and about our relative importance to others. C is about certainty and then the concerns being able to predict the future. A is autonomy, and it provides a sense of control over events. R is relatedness and a sense of safety with others, a friend rather than foe. And fairness is a perception of fair exchanges between people. So, like David Rock's model, I always bring that up. So if you didn't explore any of the resources in Module 3 about the SCARF model, I encourage you to maybe go back and do that. This is just a good way to set the tone before you actually engage in data analysis, because it's so critical that people don't walk away feeling like they have been attacked. Again, I'm going to say that again. When you are working with data and you're working with groups of teachers and teams of teachers, and their data may look a certain way, it is so important that they do not feel attacked or threatened. You have to keep that social emotional piece at the forefront. This is a little exercise, a listening exercise that you could do with your teachers, maybe your team. You just rate yourself where you are, and there's some more guidance. And I think this is also in Module 3. So again, working with adults. And I've said it, this will be the 4th time, probably, maybe 5th. It is so important to remember not to make people feel threatened or belittled. And again, it's that relatedness. So part of the required reading on the required reading list I had from DataWise, where I copied from the book the protocols, the selected protocols. And in the DataWise text, those start on page 221. It's selected protocols. Throughout the book, it says we describe a number of strategies that school leaders can use to increase the effectiveness of collaborative efforts to use data to improve learning and teaching. Many of the strategies use protocols to structure conversations. In most cases, we describe protocols in the chapters where they are relevant and use chapter endnotes to direct readers to websites where they can obtain more complete information. In this section, the writers of this text provide instructions for 6 protocols that have found to be particularly helpful in involving groups of educators in meaningful data work. All the protocols are also available on the DataWise project website, and the web address is also listed in the text. But I did it old school. I copied the book. So some of the pages are turned sideways, but you'll have to print it out or maybe download it in Adobe where you can turn the document. So I'm going to just real quick, these protocols are really, really good. When we were in face-to-face class, I always had my class get in groups and present these and take us through these in class. It was a really powerful piece. And what I found from the folks in the class was it was something that they could take back and do with their faculty. So you just have to trust me. If you're going to be serious about working with data, these are really good. The first one is called Constructing the Improvement Process Protocol, the Coherence Protocol, the Question Formulation Technique, Inquiring Introductions Protocol, Affinity Protocol, plus Data Protocol. And those are the protocols that are listed in the selected protocol section. So also additionally, that where I want to point out for you in the text, there are some DataWise resources. There's some additional books. And then there's a DataWise project website. And the URL is listed in the textbook on page 233. Great resources on that page. I have gone back and used that quite a bit. There's articles that you can share, case studies, a little bit more impactful insight on professional development, and just a great resource. If you are someone who likes to keep resources on your shelf, this DataWise text is a really good resource that I encourage you to make sure you have your own copy. It's an excellent text. So just to recap, why is it important for all faculty and staff to be heard? How is faculty and staff voice similar or different to student or client voice? So it's real important, again, that as you are building and working through the data cycle, that you can work to make all of your faculty members, regardless of what their data looks like, you make them feel comfortable. You get them to be a lifelong learner, to get themselves in their classroom in that cycle. I didn't get the results I wanted. That's okay. What are we going to do about it? We're not gonna sit around and say, well, Miss Jones in room 506, she's the one. She's always getting all the praise and all the candy. So we don't want that to happen. We want to be good leaders. So one of the best ways to do that, and according to John Hattie and Richard DeFore, is make time for collaboration. Marzano, all the researchers and big authors of our time really tell us how important it is to take that time for collaboration. This document, I believe, is also in Module 3. So making time for collaboration. So on the PLC continuum, that working piece and working together, you want it to be a results-oriented process. You act, but you don't act first. You have to plan, you have to do, you check what you've done, then you act. Then you plan, and you do, and you check, and you act. And when you check, if it's not where it needs to be, then as you have acted on it, your plan will help you to grow. It's a great cycle. And this comes from Richard DeFore. As with anything, again, this is another document that I have listed in your resources. It's developing norms for group work. And then we are actually going to do some analysis of data. That's going to be in a separate video. I am not going to post that video at the beginning of the course because I'm compiling some more data as we speak to make it a little more interesting for you. So I'm actually going to have the data pieces, and then we will go through that in an additional video. When we look at data, what are we really looking for? That whole process, it can be a summary of a section or groups of sections of literacy data. It can be across schools. Is it goals directly linked to literacy? The population targeted for improvement, evidence of data, strategies used for instruction and intervention, that's RTI squared, implementation plan for faculty and staff, evidence of an improvement monitor plan, evidence of goal mastery, what are the areas of strength, what are the areas of improvement, can we do a gap analysis? Do we have enough information to say what is the gap? Is there evidence of a formative and summative evaluation plan? And then is there evidence of teachers and administrators on board to accomplish the work? So the whole year process must include either one of those things, two of these things, or all of these things. More than likely, a really good, well-developed process is going to include all of these things. So here is, again, this cycle from DataWise. And as we examine instruction, we have to think and drill down. So one of those ways to do that is really to dig into SMART goals. And I think a lot of districts already do this. I know my friends in Shelby County have told me that they are engaged in SMART goals. But just real quick, I'm gonna go over these next few talking points very quickly, because you can always go back and open up the documents that I have in the module folder. But writing an instructional goal, it may change a teacher's practice. It has to be designed to improve student learning in a specific way. An instructional goal is like a testable hypothesis. A change in teacher practice that, if made, then it is likely to lead to improved student outcomes. So here's this learner-centered problem again. With what are students struggling? This statement might begin with students are having difficulty with what? The issue of teacher practice. What do teachers want to do better? This statement might begin with teachers want to XYZ. Then the actual instructional goal. What is the instructional practice that teachers will implement to change their instruction? This statement might begin with teachers will. So to write an instructional goal, let's go back and think about those learner-centered problems for middle school, and it was the language, art, and social studies. Students are having difficulty providing evidence from text that they read to support a particular point of view. So remember in Module 3 where we had those 3 different levels of the learner-centered problems, we listed that was an issue, correct? So how we want to turn that back around is to say that teachers want to adopt common teaching strategies and assessment tools to provide students with more opportunities to learn how to pull evidence from text to support an argument in language arts and social studies classes. Teachers will engage students in guided, persuasive writing activities, tasks that involve selecting evidence and providing a platform for debate in order to develop the habit of substantiating opinion with evidence. So you're going to draft an actual instructional goal by looking at student data, including the issue with teacher practice, and then draft it for your learner-centered problem. The goal your team and your school selects to focus on should meet the following criteria: that it needs to be common to many students, if solved would meet your larger goals for students, is supported by multiple sources of data and restricted base practices, is specifically focused on knowledge, skills, and learning dispositions that you want students to have. And then you have to have an understanding of the reasons behind students' low performance in the particular area. So now actually on to writing a SMART goal. It has to be specific, well-defined, clear to anyone that has a basic knowledge of the project, measurable, know if the goal is obtainable and how far away completion is, know when it has been achieved. It has to be attainable. Argument with all stakeholders, agreement with all stakeholders that the goal should be, and then results-oriented, within the availability of resources, knowledge, and time, and then time-bound. Enough time to achieve the goal, not too much time, which can affect project performance. So there are some resources. If your district doesn't do SMART goals, and this is something that you want to explore, I have included several resources in your module resource section. So you would want to check those out. All right, so here's an example of what it means to move through a performance indicator as it relates to a SMART goal. So you were taught the laws and rules of the road. Congratulations, you passed the written test. Have you mastered the art of driving? What do you think? Just depends, right? Probably not. Behind the wheel of the car, learning to drive on back roads, the big city, and not to forget the parallel parking, all with an adult or experienced driver. But still, can you say, have you mastered the art of driving? Well, we hope we're getting better, right? Then we're on our own. Here, we can draw the line and say the student meets expectations and demonstrated skills to be independent. So have you mastered the art of driving? Well, we certainly hope you have. Now, I just have to be honest. I don't parallel park too well, but I can get down the road. So those are a way to think about when you write goals. What do you really want to term as having mastery? So here's a couple of examples. Students will meet or exceed the district writing expectations as measured by the 6 traits writing sample scoring internal goal example. 65% of all 11th graders receiving free and reduced lunch will score on track and mastery at the on the end of course EOC, and they're going to increase from 55% in 2019 to, and it would be really good to say to what? What is your goal? Do you want it to be 65%, 75%? So we need to include that. So a good way to put it is during the 21-22 school year, the number of 1st through 8th grade regular education students at sample school improving their writing skills and integrated and targeted traits will increase 5% at each grade level as mastered by the 6 trait scoring rubric, monthly grade assessments. So for this one, this SMART goal, we can actually, if we just said we wanted, for the 11th graders, if we just said we want them to increase 5%, or increase 10, whatever you think is a doable goal. Sometimes holding our own is a goal. So how do we plan the change? Once you have examined the data and drafted an instructional goal, you will select strategies to use in the classroom to help you reach your goal and determine the supports needed for full implementation. Then you plan to assess the progress. We won't know if this change will lead to improved student outcomes until we actually implement the change. How will the school leader, coach, or teacher know which improvement efforts are yielding positive outcomes? Do we need to keep change initiatives in place long enough to see any benefits? Well, you certainly can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I've heard that statement all my life, but that's what it means. You have to give it a chance, and you can't keep switching gears until you know if something is working or not. To gather more data, you have to look for cause data, effect data. Cause data is information based on actions of the adults in the system, and effect data is student achievement results from various measurements. Because again, here, let me go back. I want you to think about Jack and Jill. Jack was a 5th grader. Jill was that 11th grader. And remember in Module 3 where we were looking at their data, we did not have enough information when we said they needed an IEP goal, correct? So they had to look at various measures in order to really get to how to act. So one thing you can do in a school setting is do walkthroughs, observations, focus walks, instructional rounds, peer observations, and that's from an instructional point of view. And then assessing effect data, examining student work, common formative assessments, benchmark tests, universal screener, and I'm sure we could go on and list a few more, but those are a few examples of how to act and assess using cause and effect data. One for instruction, assessing the cause, and then assessing the effect. So from cause and effect gathering, who are the students who are not performing? Student achievement results by student groups. What do the students know and what do they not know? And that's from achievement results. Are all teachers teaching the standards? Are all teachers teaching the standards? How are we teaching math, ELA, reporting in PLCs or with grade level teams? What is the impact of our instruction? Can we follow the data? What do teachers, students, and parents think we need to do to improve? Do we value everyone's opinion? And then what does our data analysis tell us about what we need to do to improve? So when you look at all those things combined, what is it that it's telling us? So leadership and learning is like a matrix. If you're lucky, you have high results, low understanding of antecedents, replication of success is unlikely. If you're losing, you have low results and low understanding of antecedents. If you're leading, you have high results, high understanding of antecedents, replication of success likely. And then learning, low results, high understanding of antecedents, and replication of mistakes are unlikely. So we want to be somewhere between that leading and learning. If we're leading, that's the star. If our results are low and we're learning, that's okay. Remember the parachute packers, student C, they were in the learning, but that replication of mistakes is unlikely, and that's what we want. So can you create an early warning system? And it's real important to stop and pause here, because the power of an early warning system and predictive analysis does not come from the numbers, but from what your teachers do to prevent an undesirable result. And that's real critical in how we move forward. So how can the steps below work to prevent undesirable results? So you have to determine what you want to predict. So for example, high school dropouts. You need to read the research about what predicts the results. Research shows what causes performance, and then review and then locate students in the pipeline. So take a moment to think about that. No, it's still, I haven't got it up yet. All right, so I hope you've had a time to think about what you can do to help prevent an undesirable result. And this is the end of Module 4.